Well,
by,
so
management level,
no, so listen, here we go.
personnel.
So they would report to the CEO because there's
Hmm.
got to be someone they report to. But then they become an advisor to every single C-suite position. They sit in on marketing meetings, they sit in on sales meetings, they sit in on financial meetings, they sit on all those meetings because what that position does, which is going to be a unique thing for people to understand, is every time they walk into a meeting, they're going to raise the level of clarity in everyone in that room naturally because we all know it's
Hmm.
energy. Quantum mechanics is talking about that. So they don't really have a team. They become the secret weapon to every VP, every C-suite. They become a secret weapon to the CEO. They travel. They go to meetings. They're at the watering hole talking to customer service. They're bringing such a neutrality to everyone in that organization for them to be more authentic, which creates less division and conflict.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to the King Dems podcast, where we share the stories of extraordinary people and dissect art. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. You're once again welcome to the King Dems podcast. And today I have with me, fighting out of Utah, United States of America, make welcome Charlie, the Chief Consciousness Officer Johnson. How are you?
Good man, good man. Thanks for having me on. I assume that was
Ah,
the UFC intro, like Bruce Buffer.
yeah, you like the Bruce Buffer introduction.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I was at the UFC event in London, last month, March, and we had Bruce Buffer. You know what? I love I love the man. I love the energy he brings. And please, you're close to Uncle Dana. Tell Uncle Dana, to have me replace Bruce Buffer. Bruce Buffer is on his way out. That guy is old.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, they're going to
Uh-huh.
need to find someone. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah, but you got me standing in the wings to replace him.
Perfect.
Are you gonna tell Uncle Dana for me?
Yeah, let me send him a tweet.
Please send him a tweet
Yeah.
right now. Or we can have it. We can have it right here. Say something to tell Uncle Dana, and let's put it out there.
I wish I was connected to him.
But what are you gonna tell Uncle Dana?
I have no clue. I got to find his cell phone. I got to see if I can connect with him.
Whoa, interesting. It's really lovely to have you here, and I love the real G's. You are a real G of this generation, and your journey has nothing, to do with being conventional. You are unconventional. You are unconventional. You know. So what are you? It's either you're conventional or you're okay. They say, yeah, orthodox or southpaw. You are a
Yeah.
southpaw.
No, I've got neither. And there was nothing conventional about my path. Although
Yeah.
I wish it was more conventional.
You are. You're not even southpaw as such. You're bisexual. Let me put you
Exactly.
there. You have no stance.
No, I have no side. I'm not choosing a side.
You're bisexual. Of course, the most dangerous fighters, are the bisexual fighters. You can fight from any stance.
Oh yeah,
You know,
terrifying.
and yeah, like talking about your journey, from leading a non-profit to founding the consciousness training and the world's first chief consciousness officers. Like, let's start from the top. Like, what awakened your drive to bring consciousness in the ecosystem of the boardroom?
Well, everything's consciousness. Everything physical and non-physical.
Mm.
It is fundamental to our reality and to our experience. So all we've known, all we've ever coached, all we've ever taught, all we've ever learned, all we've ever focused on is this thing, this mind. It's a divided tool. It's dualistic. It's the middleman. It's not tapped in. It's not consciousness. Consciousness created the brain. It created the mind. So instead of going to the source, we've been using this. And like Einstein said, the same mind that created the problem can't solve it. So everything that's breaking down now in our civilization, in our society, in our world, it was created by this. And we think this is going to fix it. It's not. We need to tap into consciousness. We need to take our awareness and expand it. So I've had the business background, the nonprofit background, and then I had over 10 years with a very enlightened teacher who taught me about all this stuff. And he had me read every book you could possibly read from every angle, every religion, every philosophy, every psychology, science, everything.
Wow. Wow. Why do we have a similar background? Why? Tell me.
But he had me read it not to stuff my head full of knowledge because it's already chaotic. He had me read it to figure out very quickly that everything everyone's saying is coming from the same source. Every religion's doing the same thing. Every God's the same. Every philosophy is the same thing.
There's just one
Republican,
God.
Democrat, all the politics, it's all coming from the same source. We as humans have created the separation and the division. So he had me read that for me to understand that so I could come to a podcast like yours to create the chief consciousness officer out of neutrality. Because in a world that's more divided and conflicted than ever, especially in business and politics, we need neutrality. And that position that can come to a company with a neutral stance, with no dog in the fight, that's a powerful thing.
Ha 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 ha. You know, it's interesting. And like Morgan Anderson said in a few episodes back, she said about me, you are a modern day business philosopher. And I love what you're talking about neutrality. I can't remember the exact episode, but I told somebody on this podcast, it's well documented. I come from Nigeria, and there's something they say often in Nigeria in pidgin English. They say, if you don't get evidence, you go explain tired. You know what that means? If you don't have evidence, you're going to explain and get tired.
Mm-hmm.
I said this to somebody. The best way to enjoy sports is to be a neutral. I don't support any soccer team. I don't support any basketball team. The only bias I have is probably, in the UFC for my Nigerian fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I hit that realization that you enjoy a sport the most when you are a neutral fan, it made me become a better analyst. It made me become a better fan of sports.
Yeah.
And like we said in our pre-interview discussions, being in a neutral space is just a beautiful thing. But it seems like a lot of people would probably never experience that in their lifetimes.
No, that's okay. It's, I always say we don't get mad at an 8-year-old for being in second grade, and a 16-year-old and the 16-year-old being in 10th grade is not better than the second grader.
Mm.
We're just all at different levels, different understandings, different clarities. One is not better than the other. Again, the 16-year-old is not better than the 8-year-old. But what no one's paying attention to, and these are the discussions that I'm blown away that aren't more prevalent, is understanding this. This is a dualistic divided tool. It is created to choose a side. It is created to choose a team, a player, a fighter, a political side, a god, a religion, up or down, right? It needs to know an answer. And based off of your bias, your conditioning, how you learn, where you were born, where you were raised, what your parents said, what your teachers said, they're going to influence you. So when someone like in Utah, it's very religious, it's very Mormon. Well, there's a lot of Mormons in Utah. Well, you go down to Texas, there's a lot of Baptists. If you took someone in Utah, born in Utah, and immediately from day one put them with Texas parents, they'd be Baptist. And if you
Exactly.
took someone from Texas who was Baptist and immediately put them in Utah, they'd be Mormon. So
Exactly.
I don't know why that's not a bigger discussion or to understand levels of consciousness. One not being better than the other, but there's so much division and conflict, and my God's better than your God, and my political view is better than yours, right? We're continuously tearing each other down, the other side down. We've created this unique world that's being separated and divided apart, and we all want to rid the world of that. You can't do that by choosing sides. You can't.
You cannot. You cannot. We keep talking about awareness, but I think for the layman watching this, I'd love for us to, strip it down and probably find some context to the content of awareness. So I did take a quick look at Wikipedia, and, it states that awareness is a relative concept. It may differ to an internal state, such as a visceral feeling or on external events by way of sensory perception. It is analogous to sensing something a process distinguished from observing and perceiving, which involves a basic process of acquainting with the items we perceive. Awareness can be described as something that occurs when the brain is activated in certain ways, such as when the color red is seen once the retina is stimulated by light waves. This conceptualization is posited due to the difficulty in developing an analytical definition of awareness or sensory awareness. So, awareness is also associated with consciousness in the sense that it denotes a fundamental experience, such as a feeling or intuition, that accompanies the experience of phenomena. Specifically, this is referred to as awareness of experience. So you are the chief, consciousness officer, and consciousness and awareness are, interwoven. I'd like for you to speak to, the common man and just provide basic explanations of these
So,
concepts.
as Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough, right? So,
Hmm.
Wikipedia has that, and they talk about understanding the color red or our five senses or being aware.
Hmm.
We all have that. We all know what the color red is, unless you're colorblind, right? What awareness is in the realm of what we're discussing is like the glasses on your head. The vast majority of the planet has glasses they're looking through, but they have grease on them. If you had grease on those glasses, you would not be able to see me too well.
Hmm.
You would have to guess what's on the other side. And
Exactly.
you create your ideals and your beliefs and your understandings from what you learn.
Hmm.
If your parents are a certain way, you're probably going to be like your parents.
Hmm.
If the friends are going to teach you a different political view, you're like Utah, they're going to be Republican. Texas, they're going to be Republican. Up in the Northwest, they're going to be Democrat. So the glasses on everyone's head that's seen pure consciousness has grease on them. Awareness in this understanding and the reason for this position is what this individual do is they start wiping the grease off the glasses. So you can start to understand, like my teacher told me, that both sides are coming from the same understanding. The different religions are all headed up the same mountain to the same point. Why are we fighting over it? Why are we killing each other over it? Why does a
Exactly.
Republican think the Democrat thinks he's ruining the world and vice versa? That's because the glasses we have, the view we have of consciousness, which is a little bit more conceptual, rather than the Wikipedia understanding, is we all think as adults we see things correctly. We're just grown children with bigger monsters under the bed and an understanding of our own conditioning. But we're blind to that conditioning. We're blind to that bias. We're blind to our blind spots. When someone comes in and just simply says, I don't have a dog in the fight, I'm not for you or against you, I just want to make you aware of what this means, what consciousness is, because you told me you want to leave the world better for your kids. Yeah, that is true. Okay, well, you think other religions, other political views are the reason why this world is being ruined, right? Yes. They think the same thing about your views, your political views, and
Exactly.
your. So, who's right? Well, I am. No, you're either both right or you're both wrong because it's coming from the
Hmm.
same source. Now, that's not going to change their view. It's probably going to upset them, but
Yeah, that's the annoying thing.
at
It
least,
upsets them. I'm like, why
but,
can't you be open-minded?
but it plants the seed. And the universe is the best gardener known to man. It will water that and it'll expand it. Maybe next time they'll have a little bit more compassion with the other side or another religion. That's that subtle shift that this consciousness on this planet is happening. And that's what we need. But this position brings awareness to everything within a CEO, a C-suite, and middle management, politics. I mean, politics are incredibly divided. Imagine having a chief consciousness officer on staff to help bridge that gap between the two.
It's crazy the divide that we have, especially when it comes to politics and religion. And, for a very long time in my life, I've always, abstained from making comments, in this, would I say, aspects of life. But recently, I did have two friends, one a Christian, one a Muslim, and they were having this heated argument about who is on the path of the true religion. And I was the moderator, and I told those guys, like, because for me, I'm a scholar, I'm a Christian, right? But I have been open-minded, by way of my education, enlightenment, study. I've read the whole of the Bible, read, I've studied, parts of the Quran and other religious texts. What I can tell you is they all point at just one God. And, if you study from a chronological, demographic, geographical perspective, a lot of the stories in these two different scripts, right, align towards the same set of events, the same
Yes.
set of individuals, right, and just one God. So why that divide? You know, the Bible says something. Study to show thyself approved, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Truth has no sides.
They all say the same thing. We're human. We've been given a tool that only knows division. It's a dualistic world. It makes it so you and I can be on the opposite ends of these podcasts because consciousness shows us that everything is connected. Quantum mechanics shows us everything's connected. They say the greatest illusion is the separation. I mean, that's an incredibly powerful illusion. But you and I are on the opposite ends of 6,000 miles away on a different end of podcast. That's the world we're in. It's dualistic. It's divided. It's not about one or the other. It's not about either or. It's about understanding that Democrats and Republicans, Catholics and atheists and Muslims all are in this world. They live in this world. They have kids in this world. They have their beliefs. And it's not an either or. It all exists. Everything's just fine. There's no reason to kill each other over it. There's no reason to be so divided over it. There's no reason to be so conflicted over it or thinking that one group is ruining the world. It's all coming from the same source. It's all the same thing. That's what a chief consciousness officer would bring to an organization. They would create less division and conflict. They'd help HR hire individuals at a higher level of consciousness.
Uh-huh.
They would help truly with conflict within teams, with organizations, within executive suites, and they would give clarity to every level of the company because consciousness is in business already. We're just not paying attention to it. So they would bring that individual, that position would bring to the attention of everyone within the organization, within a political party, whatever it is, clarity. And once we know better, we do better in a sense. Because a fifth grader is a little bit more evolved than a third grader. They understand math a little bit more. They can read and write a little bit better, right? They're a little bit more self-sufficient. That's what we're looking to do. Because adults think that since we've grown up that we're aware and we have high consciousness. It's not the case. Just look at the world. Look at how divided and conflicted it is. That just shows you that's your answer right there. That's how divided it is. That's how much incredible lack of clarity there is on this planet. And again, this position is not saying that from a negative standpoint or a right standpoint. It's like the wall behind me is white. I'm not judging it. It's white. My t-shirt's green. It's not a judgment. It's just an understanding that there's a lot of division and conflict. And if you choose a side, you're a part of it.
Uh-huh.
So that's so if you want to rid the world of that division and conflict, you've got to be aware of it first. You've got to be aware that you're part of it.
He talks about clarity, and it just reminded me of part of the Bible that's Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2. Talking about the just living by faith, and it says, Then the Lord answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it. Clarity is very, very, very important. And, people suffer, for lack of clarity. I think even I can remember where exactly, it says that people suffer, for lack of wisdom, right? And in order getting to get understanding, understanding is very, very important. People lack wisdom, people lack understanding. And recently on my birthday, I was having some reflective thoughts, and I thought about how I've been privileged to speak with people all around the world, people from, all of the continents in the world, people highly successful in their crafts, in their occupations, in their professions. Or I put it all together, what really makes a well-rounded person, right? A well-rounded person. And I came to this word, fitness. So what is fitness about? Fitness has 4 quadrants, right? You need to be spiritually fit. You need to be mentally fit. You need to be physically fit. and you need to be financially fit. So I put that philosophy to you, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, again, there's there's no reason to go into too much detail. That's a great philosophy. Being fit in those four areas, including emotional, I mean, would make a very well-rounded individual. And usually, with clarity, you start to see more of the options out there. You're less divided in what you will do. You're more compassionate. You're more empathetic. You're more open to other solutions and other seeing things in a different way. So yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Those four quadrants are great.
Well, thank you very much. From one philosopher to another philosopher. You have actually mentioned your teacher, right? Every great philosopher, every great leader, usually has great influence. Yeah, I don't know. You have not revealed the identity of the teacher. That's up to you. If you want to, you can. But what did that experience unlock for you personally, and like how did it shift your personal and your professional lens?
Well, so I didn't have a spiritual background or religious background. So when I crossed his path, which I didn't even know what he did existed. I didn't know meditation or any of this stuff existed. I didn't know anything. I didn't. Again, I being born and raised in Utah, you think I'd be religious. I'm not. I wasn't against it. I wasn't against it. It just wasn't something we did. But I also
You're,
wasn't
you're a
spiritual.
break from the norm.
I was just, like I said, I was like this white wall, just this wide open space. So he had me understand everything. I think we talked about this 10, 15 minutes. He had me read a lot of stuff. Again, not to fill my head and to exhaust me because our mind's already full. This is a very fixed tool. I know everyone thinks it's expansive. It's not. You can expand your awareness and have access to new information, but this bad boy right here is full. You just got to look at the world. You got to look at the studies. It's fixed, it's full, it's just overwhelmed continuously. It's why we're so exhausted. But he had me learn all of this information again for me to figure out 2 years in, that holy shit, this is all the same. That's a very intelligent person. So is that person. And they're saying the same thing. That's an incredibly powerful book in the Bhagavad Gita. That's an incredibly powerful book in the Quran and the Book of Mormon or the Bible. My God, they're saying the same thing. That philosopher's saying the same thing. That psychologist is saying the same thing. Buckmaster Fuller, all those guys. They're just, everything is coming from the same. Where else can things come from? They're coming from the same source. And knowledge is structured in consciousness. There's no division there. Everything that we pull, everything we've ever learned, anything we've ever taught, anything we've ever heard, read about, gone to a lecture about, watched on a podcast, listened from Einstein to the dumbest person on the planet, the smartest person, every single thing that has ever been absorbed up here came from consciousness. Knowledge is structured in consciousness. You can't pick it out of the mind. It's not part of the brain. It's not part of the mind. That's just the middleman. There's a source. And what we're calling it nowadays, for lack of better words as humans, is we try to figure out this understanding of what consciousness is. Every piece of knowledge came from that. Everything physical and non-physical, every thought. But knowledge as we know it, no matter what language we're speaking, came from somewhere. If you're just a logical human, you got to think it came from somewhere. Well, it came out of someone's mind. Where'd the mind come from? Well, it came from consciousness. What was a thought? That was a unique thought to that person. Okay. Where'd that thought come from? Well, it came from consciousness. It's all one. It's all consciousness. Quantum physics, quantum mechanics. Take a little piece of DNA over here and take it 10,000 miles across the planet or 10,000 miles across the world. Whatever you do here immediately does it to something that's 10,000 miles away. They're continuously proving how connected everything is. So there's this source that is what the word they have now is consciousness. Even that word is a construct.
Exactly.
Everything's a construct. We're doing the best we can to describe something we can't describe with words. So we're not really getting to the root of it. So Donald Hoffman and all of these incredible, intelligent PhDs that are trying to figure out consciousness, and they're talking about it being an illusion or like a VR headset or it's a dream or whatever. Those are all ideas and theories, and they're probably right, but it's not an either or. Because if this is a dream, just like the Bhagavad Gita talks about with it being the great play, the great Leela, Maya, it's a very persistent dream. If this world is an illusion, I was playing soccer last year and someone popped my knee out and I had to get surgery. I know it's an illusion. That still hurt.
Not soccer, the real football.
Oh, the football. It's the football.
Soccer is an illusion.
Yeah, my fault. My fault.
It's an American construct.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going
Yeah,
to attack you now. Like, why do you guys
we're
call
in
football, American football, football? Why do you guys hold it?
Yeah, exactly. But we've got this source that is the best thing we can come up with right now is that it's consciousness. So if that's the case, if that's where we came from, if that's where all business is swimming in, all employees are swimming in, all intelligent people are swimming in, all of our knowledge, all of our ideas, all of our solutions, all of our problem, all of it's in the consciousness. I think that these companies now need someone on staff who understands it, and not from a super spiritual place, because those individuals have their own path, but they don't really like business. They don't like profit. They're trying to, in a sense, change things up, which is fine, but that's not really going to help a business. And it's not from an angle of being super, super, super intelligent like Bernard Kastrup and Hoffman and those guys, because they're literally trying to figure out what consciousness is. And for the vast majority of people on the planet, they don't care. What we need to, with the vast majority of humans, day-to-day common men, business people, customer service VPs, is let them know it exists and how they can tap into it. And that's what a chief consciousness officer does, because it's the best thing you can do with consciousness is describe it in this way. A wise fish swimming through the ocean swims by two young fish and says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" The two young fish look at each other and say, "What's water?" All they've known in their existence is what they've been doing. They don't know there's water. They've been swimming in water their whole life. They don't know that. They're not aware of it. You, me, and all of your listeners are swimming in consciousness. So now the fish know there's water. Now the individuals know there's consciousness. We're a part of it. Like a fish in water, like the water is all around them. They're a part of it. They're tapped into it. We are a part of consciousness. We are consciousness. We have access to it. We can tap into it. You don't need to be super intelligent, and you don't need to be spiritual, because most people aren't intelligent. I'm not. And most people aren't spiritual, because most people are religious or just normal. They're fine. We got to bring consciousness, the awareness of what consciousness is, into business, because everyone needs a job, and that's where most people are. If we really want to expand awareness, not in the sense of everyone knows a color is red, but take them from here to here, they've got to be aware of what consciousness is.
You talk about expanding the scope, right? And expanding scope actually helps to increase, the ability to see things from different angles, bringing in physics into this. You have different angles. You have angles of elevation, you have angles of depression, right? But when your scope is limited, it limits the range of what you're able to capture,
Yes.
with your eyes, and also limits, what you are capable of being aware of.
Yeah. And how you approach situations.
Yeah.
How you approach
Because your
conflict
worldview is limited.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You approach it in a way that is defensive. And when you're defensive, you're always on the defense, and you're not looking for it, but division and conflict usually pop up when you're on the defense.
I think this actually aligns with, something I said, on the podcast recently. I said, as human beings, we all have capacities, and our capacities are a function of three E's. Do you want to know what the three E's are?
Please. Yes.
Our capacities are a function of, number one, our education. Number two, our exposure. And number three, our experience. And those three E's form what I call our enlightenment. How enlightened are you? It's a function of your education, your exposure, and your experience. And those are what form your capacity. So I put it from one philosopher to the other philosopher at the other side of the pond, right? So talk to me about what you think about that.
Well, again, it's not an either or. So I'm going to give you a different perspective on that. Because when you say, tell me again, education, exposure, experience.
Exposure, and experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's where we miss this, because there's incredibly intelligent people, a lot of them. And there's incredibly intelligent people who are Catholic, and there's incredibly
Uh-huh.
intelligent people who are atheist.
Uh-huh.
There's incredibly intelligent people who are Republican, and there's incredibly intelligent people who are Democrat.
Uh-huh.
So all of that, to me, is not enlightenment. Enlightenment is a stripping away of bias and conditioning. Because
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I completely agree with what you're talking about, but that education, exposure, and enlightenment, the education needs to be an unlearning. The exposure needs to be exposing to someone who helps them with neutrality and pulls away
Exactly.
their bias and conditioning, right?
Exactly.
And their experience needs to expand their awareness to the point where they see that both sides are coming from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in complete agreement with you with that. But most people would listen to your three E's and say, well, I'm a Harvard grad, I'm 160 IQ, I'm Republican, I'm right.
And you
No.
know what? Education is not the same thing as literacy.
Well, no, and the point is there's another person that's a 160 IQ Harvard grad and they're a Democrat. I don't understand why no one's having this discussion, because there's intelligent people on both sides of any side, both sides of any argument, both sides of any religion, any political, and no one sat down and said, my God, there's so much division and conflict. Why does this keep happening? Well, it's the Democrats. No, they think it's the Republicans. Why is this such a rare topic? Why do we have all of these things that we teach and talk about, and these psychologists and books on happiness and everything else? They're not working. They're not. We have never been so chaotic, never been so conflicted, and never been so divided. That's just a fact. That is just a fact. So we got more books than ever on psychology, more books than ever on the human mind, neurology.
Human social interaction.
We got more books on happiness than we've ever had. Does it look like it's working? We have more wellness programs within organizations than we ever had. The last 20 years have been huge on wellness, on meditation, mindfulness, yoga, Tai Chi. The big, huge corporations, the tech companies have amazing mindfulness or wellness programs. But again, the world's never been so divided and conflicted. Why is no one
And
paying?
unwell.
Why is no one paying attention? Truly,
The height of wellness programs, but then we have the height of being unwell.
I feel like I'm on an island all the time, because if I don't support what people think is doing good, because I'm not against it, but I'm not really supporting. If I don't say, yeah, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread, people think I'm like against it, or I'm being pessimistic. I'm just being neutral. I'm just saying, I know you implemented all these wellness programs, but most employees don't participate. HR was forced to do it, and the CEO didn't want to put it in the budget. And even the ones who had their heart in the right place and did it for the right reasons, again, look at the world. Look how divided and conflicted we are. It doesn't seem to be working. The 10,000 books on happiness don't seem to be working, but yet all those people who write those books are making millions of dollars doing keynote speeches about happiness. It's not sinking in. Like, why the fuck, excuse my French, why are we,
That sounds more like Spanish.
yeah, why are we continuously doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, like Einstein said? Yet I'm creating a position that's has never been done before, and I'm kind of on the outside looking in, wondering, like, my God, what you guys want as a business, this position can bring to you immediately. What you're looking to rid the world of, this position will help with. What you're trying to figure out and expand your awareness and the access to knowledge and solutions, this is exactly what this position would do. But our conditioning and our bias keeps us in that box, even though the box is breaking everything. It just really blows me away. We have so much access to information and knowledge and happiness and how to be this and how to be psychologically and emotionally and EQ and all this. And we've never been so chaotic and never been so anxiety ridden, never been so divided.
You know what? For a moment, I'm taking off my podcaster hat, and taking on my CEO and CFO hat right now. In the corporate world, basically when you're trying to make decisions, something we talk about a lot is there a business case for this thing, right? You either have a business case or you have a personal case for this. And I'd like for you, to give, this brief pitch on the value of bringing on board, somebody in a role of, a chief consciousness officer, and let's try to split it into the benefits for large scale organizations, and also is it required for SMEs as well, the smaller medium scale enterprises? Yeah.
Well, this position is good for startups. It's good for small business, medium and large. And this position is the next logical step. Just like when technology took over business and they needed to hire CTOs because everyone saw that technology was going to take over. But most people in the business, including the CEO, had no clue what a website was, how to code, or what a URL was. So they hired someone to take care of that. And it was an important hire. Well, everything shifting on this planet is consciousness. Everything they're doing at the HR level, the CEO level, and the division between the gap spreading between employees and executives is happening because of this consciousness shift.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just want you to add something towards the end. Is please do add a few details of what the job description, what a typical JD, for a chief consciousness officer would be.
Well, let's do this. They would report to the CEO. They would have no authority over any other team in the organization. What they would be is they would become a tool that every C-suite executive could use. They would be a tool for VPs. They would be a tool for middle managers. They'd be a tool for employees. Because what this individual would do, the job description would be an open space, neutral, and their consciousness, because of how consciousness works and how energy works, because of that neutrality, there's nothing dividing them. Every time they walked into a meeting, every time they walked into a room, every time they had a talk with someone, they would bring their level of consciousness up. They would bring the walls down at every level of the organization. They would help a CEO go from here to here. They would help every C-suite executive go from here to here. They would expand awareness at every level of the company with every employee involved. They would be someone who bring such clarity to every situation, to every problem that needed to be solved, to every strategy, to every technique, to every team member, that right there is probably the most beneficial thing, because whether we agree with it or not, Susie is a Republican, Eddie's a Democrat. Susie could have the best answer to a problem in marketing or the most creative idea in marketing, but because they know each other so well from working each other, there's a subconscious thing that Eddie really won't accept that idea. First of all, because it wasn't his. Second of all, because it's coming from a Republican. And I know that sounds childish. And I know everyone watching this would say, I would never do that. Okay. Okay. That's fine. That's another blind spot. This position, again, real quick, technology was taking over our world. They needed someone who understood technology. Consciousness is our world, and people are waking up to consciousness, to this vast resource, to going past this middleman that caused all the problems. You better have someone on staff who understands consciousness. Because if you stay here, the same mind that created the problem can't solve it. If you stay here, this tool created the problems. It's not going to be able to solve it. It's the chief consciousness officer is going to allow everyone at every level of the organization to understand what consciousness is, that they're a part of it, and how to tap into it. Everyone at every level is going to go from here to here. Very restricted on solutions, on problems, on conflict, on division. You expand here, you have access to all of this, not just this tunnel vision. That right there, because we're talking about marketing being more creative, sales bringing in more sales, HR hiring different people, a CEO coming up with a strategy that's different from their competitors, customer service being better with their customers, middle management understanding how to better take care of their employees. Everyone's here. All the solutions are out here. You expand, they're going to have access to new knowledge, new information, and an awareness they've never had. So the best thing about this position is they do that, and then everyone has access to it. So they become the hero of their own story. They become the ones who come up with the answers. The hierarchy, which is always going to be there, that's just human nature. But when you have someone bought in from customer service who has access to that information and can make decisions on their own that everyone trusts, that's powerful. Instead of a middle manager micromanaging, instead of a VP micromanaging everyone, you're giving everyone access to more information. When that happens, they're going to feel more confident. They're going to be more clear. They're going to feel better about going to work. They're going to feel more trusted. They're going to go home and be better with their spouse. It's bringing that clarity. What else is there? Truly, what else is there? We are ruining business. We are ruining this planet. We're ruining our environment. We're beating the hell out of each other. We need clarity. We don't need knowledge. Everyone's minds are full of knowledge. The intelligent people on both sides of every argument who are going to war and killing each other are very, very smart people. We don't need more knowledge. We need access to clarity so we can see it in a different way. No amount of books is going to take a Catholic and an atheist to understand each other, or two warring countries, or two politicians. We need clarity, and clarity does not mean intelligence. Clarity means having glasses on your face so you can see clearly through. Because if they're not clear, you're guessing. We need clarity.
Speaking of clarity, I think I do need clarity regarding from an organizational structure perspective, right? The reporting responsibilities, you talk about the hierarchy, right? So who does the CCO, the Chief Consciousness Officer, report to, and who implements the recommendations, and at what level is this person operating? Because we know that in corporate structures, if the hierarchy of an individual or of a personnel is not well, stated, yeah, if it's not well defined, sometimes, their role might be undermined,
Well,
especially by,
so
management level,
no, so listen, here we go.
personnel.
So they would report to the CEO because there's got to be someone they report to. But then they become an advisor to every single C-suite position. They sit in on marketing meetings. They sit in on sales meetings. They sit in on financial meetings. They sit on all those meetings because what that position does, which is going to be a unique thing for people to understand, is every time they walk into a meeting, they're going to raise the level of clarity in everyone in that room naturally because we all know it's energy. Quantum mechanics is talking about that. So they don't really have a team. They become the secret weapon to every VP, every C-suite. They become a secret weapon to the CEO. They travel. They go to meetings. They're at the watering hole talking to customer service. They're bringing such a neutrality to everyone in that organization for them to be more authentic, which creates less division and conflict. Every day, all day, that individual, male or female, is walking around that organization raising the level of clarity just by existing. And when they come into the organization and have a business background, a nonprofit background, and understand that lingo, understand that the business was created to make profit, understand that it's not about the employees and it's not about the executives, making sure that both sides of any argument understand each other, understanding that it's not about being purpose-driven or profit-driven. It can be both. Understanding that sometimes there's going to be hard decisions made. Understanding that it's not about spirituality, that it's not about religion, that it's not about any one side. Helping everyone in the organization understand the other side of the argument, even in a more subtle way. Basically, it's like taking every employee in the business. Let's say every employee in the business is second grade. Wouldn't it be better if the employees were in fourth? Right? Because
Definitely.
they would understand English better, they'd understand math better, they'd be a little bit more self-sufficient. Like I'm talking about that from a level of that. Just imagine taking everyone in the organization, no matter their intelligence, no matter what position, no matter what level, and raising them up. There's a great movie. This is the perfect example of what a chief consciousness officer is. There's a movie called The Cooler with William H. Macy. It's in Vegas. Every time there's a roulette table that's just flowing, making tons of money, or someone's on the 21 playing blackjack and making a ton of money, they will bring William H. Macy in to cool the table down. Legit, this is what Vegas does this. They bring in someone with really low energy, just and they either start playing blackjack to mess up the rotation, or they just stand on a roulette table and their energy just, guy will crap out or the guy on blackjack will just get up and leave. He stops it. He's the cooler. Very hot table. We're banging. We're making money. The cooler comes in and stops it. The chief consciousness officer is the polar opposite of that. When executives and companies start to really understand what this position is, and I believe I'm doing a decent job of translating and narrating this in a very business oriented understanding, they're going to want that position around all the time. They're going to want them in every meeting. They're going to want them traveling. They're going to want them at shows. They're going to want them with executives. They're going to want them in middle management. They're going to want them at events. They're going to want to help. They're going to want to help the communications officer. They're going to want to help them understand how their customers are shifting because the consciousness is shifting. They're not going to be able to go about how they went about things in the past. The consultants aren't going to really understand what's shifting. You need to bring someone in who really understands consciousness, not just strategy.
Okay, so what would be an ideal educational and professional background for someone to play that role effectively?
Well, this is where I'm excited about this because this is going to be very, very valuable for an organization. And this position is going to be rare in a sense because they're going to have a normal business background, whatever their education is, that's fine, right? It's just going to be a normal. They're not going to be someone who's left corporate behind and become spiritual because those people are great. I've met incredible amounts of them, but they don't want to be in business anymore. They don't like corporate America. They don't like profit in a sense, right? So this individual will have a business background, be engaged in business, but they will have had some time with a decently high level teacher. They're going to need to be neutral. And that's going to be somewhat difficult to find. But as this planet shifts, there's going to be more and more people understanding that both sides are doing the same thing. And there's going to be more neutrality. So you're going to want a business background so you can speak their lingo. So they don't have the walls up and they're not just pushing you away because they think you're a tree hugging hippie, right? You're going to want the business background, whatever education the corporation wants, but you're going to want someone like I talked about. You've got the business, the nonprofit, but then the time with my teacher. You're going to want someone who understands that both sides are coming from the same source, both religions, both political affiliations, both this. You're going to want someone who has the neutrality so that their consciousness is so powerful that just by being in the room, it impacts everybody. So again, I assume probably very soon with as many people, I'm very appreciative of people like you who are allowing this to be seen. There's going to be a hire at a decent level company. And then I want to help other companies find that same position because there's going to be companies that hire and then their competition is going to see this and say, I don't understand why, but I feel like we're missing out here. We need to go find someone for that position. Because once it really kicks in what someone like me would do for an organization and they trust it, I can't imagine anything more powerful. I can't imagine anything more valuable to an organization because you're not a marketing officer who doesn't understand numbers. You're not a C-suite executive that's got your own little silo over here that you can't really help the others, that's the way it's built. Imagine having someone on staff who can help everyone, literally everyone, have more clarity on their job, increase the number of solutions they have. Marketing's more creative. I mean, imagine having someone on staff like that. And on top of that, one more thing, even though this is not spiritual, most executives in companies nowadays have done some type of psychedelic, have done some type of 10-day silent retreat, have done something that's spiritual, have started meditating, mindfulness, because a lot of these organizations have wellness programs. Well, this position would be there to help, would be there to guide, would be there to answer any question they could possibly have when it comes to that part of their life. And for the wellness programs, maybe the employees aren't really engaging in it. This position would help more people engage in an authentic way because they would teach them here's the wellness program. Maybe meditation's not for you, instead of just cramming it down their throat and saying they need to meditate or they're going to get fired. Having this well-rounded understanding of all of consciousness, knowing all of it from a very clear level, allows you to approach any individual in a very neutral way that gives them the best advice for them, not from a specific side. Not from a bias side, not from what I would do, but I'm blind to it, but I'm going to tell you to do it. A legit, let the information come in, knowing where they're at, their level of consciousness, knowing where they're at with what they believe in, and giving them advice that's absolutely going to expand their awareness and make them better. That seems like a very powerful position.
From what you've described to me and matching it with my experience in public accounting, having worked with two of the global big four accounting firms, PwC and KPMG. Interestingly, I was an audit, right? I think somebody who is a well-experienced external auditor will be a good fit for this kind of a role, because when you even look at the conceptual framework, of our professional ethics, the professional ethical standards that is required of the profession, it very much aligns with what you're saying. So there are five elements in the ethical code of conduct. Number one is integrity, and number two is objectivity. Objectivity speaks to that neutrality, not taking sides. And number three is professional competence and due care. And number four is confidentiality, and number five is professional behavior. So I might be biased, but how about selling my colleagues to your newly founded profession of chief consciousness officers? What do
Yeah,
you think about
that, that could
persons
work.
who abide by that code of ethics already?
No, that's a great code of ethics. The only thing we would need to figure out is there's a lot of organizations and a lot of individuals that have the same type of principles, right?
Yeah, but these people have gone through training, and have professional experience that has forced them to apply these ethics.
Yeah, if they had that training, which would be incredible, and they were neutral, not just from a
Yeah.
business standpoint, but like a legit neutral out in the world,
Yeah,
where
you always have to be neutral
well, they
as an
they have
auditor.
that standard, right? Yeah, I mean that would be more in line with what this position would do, right? If they and the only reason I say what I said is because there's a lot of people that have certain things in business, like healthcare officials or individuals who have certain things they can't do, or they got certain principles or certain commandments or certain this or certain that, but outside of work, they still have sides they've chosen, right? So maybe
Yeah.
they're neutral in work to a certain extent, but outside, it's going to be a tough position to find. It really is going to be a tough position to fill. But I know that more people are evolving. Love your suggestion. I think they would fall in line with that. But as the
I
world
think it'd be easier
evolves,
to filter from that pool of talent because they've done like a lot of preliminary work for you already.
yeah, exactly.
Today's world is just so divided, and it's incredible, seeing the impact on business. When it comes to the training for being a chief consciousness officer, right? What are those things in place that will enable these special, personnel, the special individuals, right, within the workplace to be able to have the desired positive impact on the culture, innovation, and, motivation on what I say, the workforce colleagues, and, retention on a tactical level, because you said it like it's a tactical position.
The training for it would be a lot to do with their past history. So the business background, their education, but they would most likely have had time with a teacher like mine, not a meditation teacher, not a legit all encompassing teacher that kind of stripped them away. They would have some type of most likely I'm probably going to have to figure out some way to help with that, right? Because I want to help other organizations find that position. So I'm probably going to have to help find these people, train them, help guide them, help these companies understand if the individual is correct for that. Just to keep it simple, business background, some type of understanding of consciousness, pretty high level, and they've got to find some way to be neutral. So maybe I've done a couple interviews with people who said they were pretty neutral, right? They don't vote, they don't do this, they're not religious, they're not spiritual. Someone who has the neutrality like that is going to be very big in this position. I assume just like technology, and they hired CTOs. Some CTOs were really great, and some CTOs sucked. There's going to be no different than here. There's going to be some people that get in with this position who are incredible, and there's going to be some who get in who are super spiritual, and the company's going to be just doesn't like it. 2 months in, they're going to realize that the person doesn't really understand business and just wants everyone to meditate and think it's all one, right? So, like any other position, there's going to be good ones and there's going to be not so good ones. But business background, some type of understanding of consciousness, and neutral, legit neutral. I mean, that's going to be probably the toughest thing to find because HR, most people would consider HR neutral, but it's from a legal standpoint,
Mhm.
right? So they're very handcuffed to what they say, what they can and can't participate in. The chief consciousness officer is going to participate basically in everything. They're going to help everyone. They're going to have access to that neutrality. They're going to have the ability to be curious around all the employees, and the employees are going to know that it's not because they want to find out if they're for or against them. It's not because they want to fire them. It's not because they want to have some ulterior motive of why they're asking questions.
Interesting. You talked a bit about tech, right? So Something that is very close to my heart is AI. Interestingly, my initials are actually AI. Ademola Isimeme. I think my parents knew that I would be a big proponent of AI. That is why they gave me names that would make me align with AI, you know. I feel so privileged. You know, AI is actually on the rise, and how do we ensure that humans actually remain at the heart of business?
This position.
There's been a lot of talk about it.
This position, because also this individual would understand that artificial intelligence is just a construct. We use the word artificial. Everything
Mhm.
comes from consciousness. It's not artificial. We created this. Artificial intelligence just has more access to consciousness. It's just quicker. We as a human, the best technology in the universe, have access to consciousness. We have access to all this information. We just don't have the computing power to make it quick. Artificial intelligence is just going to benefit people. But just like everything that's created by humans, it's causing the same amount of division because there's some people who believe it's going to benefit
Disruption.
humanity, and some people think it's the worst thing in the world and it's going to ruin humanity. Facebook connected the whole world, and then it did what it did, right? The
The
science,
metaverse.
yeah. I mean, we everything on this planet has a pro and a con. So artificial intelligence has people screaming at the top of the mountain that it's the best thing in the world, and they have people at the top of the mountain saying it's the worst thing in the world. How's that any different than Republicans and Democrats, Catholics and atheists? So again, we have taken a leaf of the tree, and it's a very important topic right now because people are thinking about artificial intelligence, but it's just another thing that's caused division. There's going to be some people that enjoy it and some people that don't like it. Some people are going to benefit from it and some people are not going to benefit from it. But that's just the way being human and on this 3D realm is. Again, these answers that I'm giving you are not typical, but that's a good thing because that expands the awareness. So it gives CEOs, executives, AI professionals, whatever, it gives them a different perspective and expanded awareness to help have more compassion and empathy for what both sides are going through. Not just AI is the best thing in the world and fuck you for not believing that. That doesn't help because that's what all religions have done. My God's better than yours. If you don't think I'm going to kill you, Republicans do. Like, if you don't believe in the Republican conservative ways, then you're ruining the world. Like that. Again, all of your questions are incredible questions, but let's get down to the foundation of everything. It all comes from the same source, and it all is going to create division and conflict. So let's get there and understand why the division and conflict is being created. And then the position of this chief consciousness officer is going to bring that to the awareness of everyone within the organization, and it's going to bring everyone up. It's going to take everyone from elementary to junior high. And if I was a business owner and I had a bunch of elementary kids working for me and I could go and get junior high kids, I would go get junior high kids. I would go get someone who is further along in the revolution, a little bit more self-sustaining, more intelligent. That's what consciousness does. It's a cognitive thing. It's part of everything. It's going to, when you have clarity up here, clarity everywhere, you're just a better human.
You know, speaking of that clarity, the consciousness, right? A very, very big part of it is associated, in my opinion, you know, I stand to be corrected, is actually what I say linkable to your mental fitness. And we are in an age and time when there is unprecedented levels of burnout, you know, stress, disconnection everywhere, especially, you know, in corporate settings. So how are we able to help people to combat that mental stress?
Well, the mental stress, think about it this way. When your mind or your perception is here and everything that's being put at us is just crammed down this tunnel, there's a lot of pressure. There's no room and there's just more and more. When you expand this, you're relieving pressure. That goes with stress. Stress is a restriction. It is something I don't like, something I fear. Like it's a restriction, right? It's a closing. Anxiety, stress, fear. It's a closing of the human being. It's a closing of the mind. That when you expand awareness, when you expand and you take that fear away because someone's feeling something they've not felt before, and you just say, well, that's the shift of consciousness. This is just natural, perfectly fine. This is all happening, right? This is perfectly fine. You start to expand. So you go from here to hear. You're giving yourself more space. Stress to me is like stressing a pipe, stressing a car, stressing a human, stressing the mind. To me, it's restrictive.
This is a stress ball.
Exactly. It's small. It's restrictive. Stress is created by like the stress just to me. So when I think of that, when I think of expanded awareness, that relieves stress right there. When you have a better understanding as to why the planet's going crazy, why Susie and Ed don't get along, why someone believes in something the other doesn't, and why they hurt each other over it. Like when we expand awareness, that to me is the best stress reliever. Because the way we've gone about relieving stress in the past, like we've gone about teaching people how to be happy, and we have more access to that than ever, doesn't seem to be working because more people are more stressed and less happy than ever. You see how we're going about this in the wrong way? Like that's just factual. That is, if you've written one of those books, you'll show me studies that prove me wrong. That's fine. That's fine. But we have a lot of tools about stress and burnout and happiness and everything. We have more consultants and more people talking about that and more people trying to help and more stressed, anxiety ridden and burnout and unhappy than ever. So I'm just stating facts. So it doesn't seem to be working. We need to go to a point where people start to look at this from the source, not the level of the mind, not the middleman, not the middleman.
Speaking of unhappy, the only thing making me unhappy right now is because you are a very busy man and you have to go pretty
Well,
soon. So,
I was
what would make me happy
we need
is
to
having you on a part two
yeah,
because you
we need to
have
do
a
it again.
lot to,
We
yeah,
need to do it again
definitely.
because I saw that you set aside an hour and a half, so I was thinking maybe this is going to be one of those ones that goes like 2 hours, right? And then we just kept getting pushed back. So I'm sorry that I got to jump off, but yeah, let's do a
Yeah,
part two
that's
because your questions.
definitely.
I really want to answer more of your questions because your questions are very specific to business and what CEOs, the skeptical individuals who are going to look at this and say, how is this actually going to work? How is the structure? Like, but I need to be able to answer those. And I would love to do a part two just for that reason.
By the way, I am a CEO myself. I did get my company of fractional CFO services registered on my birthday,
Beautiful.
April 8th. So
Beautiful.
I put on that business my heart.
Thank you. Those are the questions I need to answer. That's exactly what I need to answer.
So, okay, thank you very, very much for your time today. And I don't know if you have 2 minutes to spare. Let's see your book. Where can people get the book? So we have that in the show notes. Yeah.
They can go to Amazon and I can send you that link for Truth Has No Sides. And then for reaching out to me, I think I sent you my LinkedIn URL. I want to point people there. I want them to contact me there because I do a lot of posting of what this position is and is not. And it gives them a better understanding of how it can benefit their company, different teams, where I'm coming from, that it's not spiritual. So in the video notes, when you post this, I'd love for you to post the LinkedIn link.
Exactly. Yeah. So the LinkedIn link is going to be in the description. So wherever you get the podcast, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, that is actually going to be there. And I always say this in every podcast: an attitude of gratitude is good attitude. So from me to you, it's a very, very big thank you. And if somebody shares a time with you, it means they're sharing their life with you. Right. So thank you
Yes.
very much for your time today. Before you leave, do you want to leave any shout out? And please help me beg the audience. Let them go show some love. Let them like, subscribe, share with everybody in the network because I'm doing a very, very hard job of bringing great individuals like you.
Yes. Yes. No, the only thing I would say is look into consciousness, have a better understanding of what that is, become knowledgeable on it, because just like AI and everything else, everything came from consciousness. So why wouldn't you want to understand the source of everything? It'll help.
Wow, it's been a great session. Oh, do you want to leave a shout out for anybody before we leave?
No, thank you. Just the shout outs to you for allowing this interview to happen and
Wow.
spreading the word.
Okay, thank you very much. Love and respect to you, and of course, love and respect to those people watching and listening to us. Till I come your way again, it's love for me, and please do look after yourselves. Goodbye.